Hi, Brendan from SPITWATER. Firstly, congratulations on the purchase of your new SPITWATER pressure cleaner. I'm sure you're very excited to use the machine for the first time, but before you do that, we'd just like to make sure that our pre-delivery has been completed by our dealer and to make sure you're not going to cause any damage to the machine through improper use. We would also like to give you some tips and tricks moving forward to make sure you get the longest lifespan of your pressure cleaner. Today we're going to go through to make sure that your machine is set up properly to make sure you know how to use it. Everything from hooking up the water, filling the diesel tank, knowing when to refer to the owner's manual, knowing what safety equipment to use, and also general tips and tricks of how to use your machine. Your basic safety equipment required when using a pressure cleaner should be closed-in shoes, hand protection, and eye protection. As mentioned, your dealer, as part of the pre-delivery process, should have fitted the nozzles to the lance, removed and refitted the travel plug to the standard use travel plug, also put a little bit of fuel in the burner so that they could actually get this machine going and make sure it's operational for you. If you haven't received your owner's manual, or you feel that your machine has not gone through the pre-delivery process of having that travel plug removed and nozzles fitted, please get back in contact with your local dealer. Your SPITWATER pressure cleaner has come with a standard injector and an empty 5-litre bottle that you can fill with your chemical of choice. In this case today, we have put a flow RPM truck wash in here, ready for use so we can demonstrate how to use that chemical injector. The operator controls on our 10120H consists of a pressure gauge to show us the actual working pressure of the machine. We have our chemical adjustment dial, so when in low pressure mode and sucking chemical, this dial will actually adjust how much chemical will draw through. Here we have our machine on-off switch. Next to it we have our burner switch, which is to turn our hot water on and off, and followed by lastly our thermostat, which controls the temperature of our hot water. When operating the hot water on the pressure cleaner, it is important to note that you should start the machine with the burner turned off and you should finish the machine's operation with the burner turned off. It's also worth noting that you don't have to use the hot water during normal use. If you have a job that doesn't require hot water, you can simply leave the burner turned off. To fit our high pressure hose to the outlet of the machine, we use our M22 connection. To fit the M22 connection, we line up the inside collar and O-ring with the outlet on the machine, keep it steady and turn clockwise on the collar until firm. The next thing we need to do is to fit our inlet water supply to the connection on the bypass cooling tank of our machine. When fitting our inlet water hose supply or our high pressure hose, it's not unusual to see some residual water or some water staining. This is due to the fact that this machine has been pre-tested before it's left the factory and also part of the pre-delivery process at your dealer. As part of that pre-delivery process, once again at your dealer, your high pressure hose should have been connected to your gun, also fitting any swivel that may have been purchased as an add-on accessory. If not, you can refer once again to your owner's manual on how to do this. The other part of the pre-delivery process that should have been completed was fitment of the high pressure and low pressure nozzles to the end of the dual lance. Once they are fitted, the next thing we need to do is to connect our front part of our dual lance to the back part of our lance through this M22 connection fitting. This is done once again by connecting our two M22 fittings, connecting the collar and turning the outside until tight. This front part of our dual lance, once connected, through use of the handle, controls whether the water flow comes out the high pressure nozzle side of the dual lance or whether it continues out the low pressure side nozzle of the dual lance. Turning the handle away from your body will open up the low pressure nozzle of the dual lance. Turning the handle back towards your body until tight will lock it back into the high pressure nozzle position. When we use our lance in our low pressure mode, if we have chemical connected and our chemical dial turned any part of on, it will therefore start to draw chemical through the system and apply that chemical at low pressure through our low pressure nozzle. The next thing we need to do after fitting our hoses to our machine and connecting it to power is fill the diesel tank. You may see a slight amount of diesel that is already in the machine. This would have been part of the pre-delivery process and testing at your dealer. To do this, we make sure we have the appropriate safety gear. We then remove the cap from the diesel tank, use a funnel for ease of use, and then simply fill the tank from our jerry can. Our 10120H is supplied standard with a filtration and mesh filter inside the bypass cooling tank. However, depending on the quality of water that you have, it is your responsibility to make sure you have adequate filtration to supply clean, drinkable water to your pressure cleaner. So whilst we've just gone through how to fit the front part of our lance with our high pressure and low pressure nozzle to the back part, first thing I like to do when we first start up a machine is to run it with an open gun, so no high pressure nozzle attached whatsoever. So first of all, we make sure our gun and lance is pointing towards the ground and secured safely, and then we simply flick the switch to turn it on. Once our pressure gauge returns to 0, we can now attach the front part of our lance. Again, lance placing towards the ground. Opening the handle. Goes to the low pressure side. Therefore the water's now coming out both lance pipes. If we open up our chemical at this point, we will draw chemical through at low pressure. Simply turning the handle back towards you, locked in tight, is full high pressure, and our chemical draw will stop after a few seconds. So once we're happy that our low and high pressure is working, our gauge once in bypass, which means with our hand not on the trigger pulled, returns back to 0. And when in high pressure, shows around that 120 bar mark on the gauge. We know that everything's operational. We don't have any leaks because we can't hear the machine surging. If you hear the machine making any surging noises, this is usually due to a leak somewhere in the hoses, gun, lance, or somewhere after the machine. Now what we can do is simply start to use our hot water. So to turn our hot water on, we always start it with our thermostat set to 0, and we turn our burner switch to the on position. As we then turn our dial up to a temperature above our ambient temperature, and we pull the trigger, you'll notice there will be smoke discharge from the top of the burner coil, and our water will start to heat up. Once we've been using our hot water continuously and it's at temperature, we need to start our shutdown procedure before turning the machine off. So with that, what we simply do is turn our thermostat back to at least ambient temperature or below. So in this case, I will turn it back to 0. We'll run that for 30 seconds or a minute. Once this is now cool to the touch, we can simply turn our burner switch off. Now we're safe to shut down the machine as usual. Once again, once our shutdown procedure has finished, there's always a safe idea on any SPITWATER pressure cleaner to pull the trigger to release any residual pressure in the line before startup next time. Another optional accessory for this 10120H is actually our turbo lance. So this lance, once our original lance is removed, simply screws onto that M22 fitting, tightens up. We still start the machine exactly the same way. This turbo head is going to produce a single jet of water that rotates, effectively giving us an effective working pressure on the surface that is much higher than your standard lance. Whilst you bought a premium product and our pressure cleaners are known to our customers as being bulletproof, these little simple startup procedures and shutdown procedures and basic maintenance will help you get the longest life out of your pressure cleaner as you can. They also still do need servicing. So for example, if you're going to use your machine 4 to 6 hours a day on a daily basis, you're probably looking at service intervals every quarter. You can refer to your owner's manual for more detailed information on this. Thank you so much for purchasing a SPITWATER pressure cleaner. We're extremely confident this machine will give you many years of trouble-free, reliable service. If you have any questions or concerns about your machine or any additional accessories that you may require, please reach out to us via our website or by popping into your local dealer. Hard jobs made easy with SPITWATER.